Welcome. Today's video covers some extremely creepy situations. We are going back to the front page of the internet and bringing you some true stories from Reddit. We will explore the dangers of modern dating, the fear of unknown entities, and a first-hand encounter with a historical legend. Sit back, turn off the lights, and pull those covers tight. Our first story was posted over 7 months ago by the Blazing Phoenix. I had just recently started using Tinder a couple of days before this happened. I had honestly just downloaded the app to mess around because I was bored one night. I was on it one night and saw a girl named Ash that lived about 30 or so miles from me. I decided not to pay for the app to get all the features on it, like seeing who liked you and being able to message people, but this girl had her Snapchat in her bio. I thought she looked pretty attractive, and she said she was looking for people to talk to, so I added her on my Snapchat. I ended up going to sleep a little bit after that. The next day, while I was at work, she added me back. We started talking about casual things like where we went to school, if we had part-time jobs, and stuff like that. This went on for about 3 days until one night I texted her and she didn't respond for a bit. I didn't think much of it, as she was probably hanging out with friends, as she had posted something on her story with her friends and her messing around a few hours earlier. I went back to playing my Xbox in my room, and next thing I know, I see a message from her a couple of hours later with nothing but just a period. I kind of just blew it off and sent a question mark. Seconds later, she opened up my message but didn't respond. I waited a couple of minutes and then sent, "Hello?" She immediately opened it but didn't say anything. I tried again and sent, "What's up?" In the chat again, she immediately opened it but didn't respond. By this time, it was around midnight, and I thought maybe she was tired and just didn't want to have a conversation, so I didn't think that much about it. It was still a little offsetting, though. About 10 minutes later, my phone went off again. I saw it was Ash, and she had sent me a video. I was kind of confused, but opened it anyways. What I saw was weird. It was a guy about 20 years old hitting up a vape for about 5 seconds straight. Then he blew it all out of his mouth right at her phone and said in a giggly voice, "She doesn't like you, bro, and I'm going to beat your butt for bothering her." I thought nothing of it, as I knew I had obviously had just been pranked. A few minutes later, she sent me another message. It was another video. I opened it up, and it was the guy again. She was videoing them in a car, and he was cranking up the car. After he cranked it up, he looked at the camera with a grin on his face and said, "We're coming to your house." As I had said earlier, she only lived about 30 minutes from my house, and you could take the highway basically all the way there. A few minutes went by, and I checked my snap map, and I saw they were heading south down the highway straight towards the town I live in. I still didn't believe it though, and I didn't think to turn my location off either. About another 20 to 25 minutes went by, and I decided to check my snap map again. This whole time I had still been playing my Xbox, and it was all just kind of in the back of my mind at this point. What I saw when I opened my snap map was horrifying. It was showing Ash's Bitmoji on the street west of me in the same neighborhood. I called a couple of my friends, but none of them picked up. A couple of minutes later, I got a snap from Ash saying, "Where are you at?" I didn't answer. I just closed the app out, right after she sent another message saying the exact same thing. I closed the app out again and turned the lights off in my bedroom. I also turned off my location and lied down in bed. About an hour and a half went by and nothing happened, but I was terrified. I eventually went to sleep. When I woke up the next morning, I turned my phone back on and checked my Snapchat. I turned my location back on as well and saw that Ash was back at the town she lived in. I saw she had added a new picture to her story, and I looked at it. She had posted it about 7 hours earlier at about 1:30 in the morning. It was a picture of a street in pure darkness beside street lamps, and in the caption, "Road trip," with the city's name I live in. Our second story comes from redditor glovesoffmo. I will never ever play lights out in a new place again. My family arrived at the little cottage tucked away in the backwoods of Big Bear late at night. My 5 kids, my hubby, and I decided to play lights out soon after we got settled in. We turned off all of the lights in every room of the small cottage and then played hide and seek. I ran to the tiny bathroom in the back of the cottage and hid in the shower with the curtain pulled only halfway shut. It was eerily quiet as I began to feel a presence watching me. I conjured up the courage to peek around the curtain, and as I scanned the tiny bathroom, I noticed a figure in the window. I quickly jumped back as far as I could into the shower, now physically shaking with fear. Not really sure what it was that I saw. I, as quietly and slowly as I could, pulled my phone out of my back pocket and reached my quivering arm out far enough to snap a couple of pictures. The cottage was still eerily quiet. No kids calling out or laughing. The air was thick and my heart was beating so hard and fast I had a hard time pulling up the photos I just took. As I realized that I got lucky enough to get a good, clear shot, I also saw what was creating the cold chill running through my blood. It was just standing there watching me with its pale white skeleton face, tiny sharp shards of teeth, and a pitch black robe of some sort. I took a couple of gasps before I could get any sound to come out of my throat, and then I screamed my husband's name, and waited cowardly hiding in that shower, silently praying that it would go away. Although it felt like a long time, my hubby and kids all piled into the bathroom asking me if I was okay. Feeling safe in numbers, I quickly jumped out of the shower and squeezed through my very confused and amused family and ran out the door to the other side of the cottage. By the time I could relay to my hubby my frightening experience, the entity was gone. These are the photos that she uploaded that she took while she was in the shower. Our last true story comes thanks to DJ Underdog 85. She is real. A LLorona experience. This happened to me when I was about 11 years old. It was the 90s. I have lived my whole life in El Paso, Texas. The culture is rich in folklore and religious beliefs. Many Hispanic families have stories of the paranormal. One popular legend is the legend of the Weeping Woman, aka LLorona. The legend of LLorona, Spanish for the Weeping Woman, has been part of Hispanic culture in the Southwest since the days of conquistadors. The tall, thin spirit is said to be blessed with natural beauty and long, flowing black hair. Wearing a white gown, she roams the rivers and creeks, wailing into the night and searching for children to drag, screaming to a watery grave. No one really knows when the legend of LLorona began or from where it originated. One night, just like any other night, I lived in a trailer with my mom and dad. My youngest brother was staying with my aunt this night. I fell asleep watching Jay Leno as usual, and when I woke up, I was on the sofa in my living room. The time was 4 a.m., which illuminated from the stove in the kitchen. The television was off, and normally I had a light on, but this time it was pitch black. I woke up and heard a terrible screaming that was coming from far in the distance. The screaming was coming from a ditch that was a few feet away from my home. I heard it, and I thought I was hearing things. I asked myself, am I dreaming? Then I started to hear the animals outside howling and whimpering. These animals that I speak of are cats and dogs. As the screaming got closer, the animals continued to cry. The screaming was something I had never experienced before. It sounded like I was in a big hallway and a woman was screaming her guts out down the hallway. Then in all the screaming, I started to make out words. The words being screamed by whoever this was at 4 a.m. shocked me. The woman said, "Ay, mis hijos," or "Oh, my children" in English. In a huge panic, I quickly got up from the sofa and ran to the kitchen, which was right next to where I was asleep. I turned the closet light on and looked around. The screaming didn't stop. In fact, the screaming only got louder and closer. I questioned my sanity at that moment. Was I going crazy or hearing things? Then I thought to myself, this is real, and the animals are responding to it in a negative way. So I did what any other 11-year-old boy would do in a moment like this. I ran to my mom and dad's room. I reached for my mom and shook her awake wildly. She woke up slowly, and to my amazement, the screaming faded away as she awoke. I thought to myself, what the heck is going on? I told my mother, Mom, do you hear that screaming and crying lady? My mom was half asleep and she said, Go back to sleep. It is most likely just your imagination. I told her, No, this is real. Please listen. Don't you hear her? My mom quickly just said, You are dreaming, so go back to sleep. It's going to be okay. By then, the screaming had faded long away, like if whoever was screaming knew that an adult is awake. I was terrified as I returned to the living room and quickly turned on the television as I left most of the lights on as well. I didn't go back to sleep until the sun came up. I couldn't believe what I heard and witnessed. I was treated like a crazy person whenever I told my story. It got so bad that I kept my experience to myself. To this day, I don't care what people think of my experience. I know what I heard. A couple of years later, it happened to me again. But that's a whole other story I will share later. Thank you so much for joining us as we took a look at those true stories from Reddit. We hope you all enjoyed. Please subscribe, like, leave a comment, and share. Thank you for all your support. Until the next one.